welcome you to the Radnor Township Historic and Architectural Review Board meeting for Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. First order of business is call to order. Second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda is old business, HARB 2021-12, 113 Walnut Avenue, Wayne. Resubmitting plans incorporating full-length chimney. Plans include architectural shingles, both with full height and chimney. Additional information was emailed to all board members on Thursday, July 15th at 3:34 p.m. And if I remember correctly, that was a survey on whether or not the residents would prefer a shingle roof in the front or a metal roof.
So at the conclusion of the meeting, HARB had asked for a two-story chimney, two-story masonry stone chimney, and then a neighbor had suggested that there was no buildings in North Wayne that had metal shingle roofs. So what we said is we don't have a strong opinion either way. The metal roof, we thought, added some nice architectural detail. It's actually a more expensive building option for us, but we don't have a strong feeling either way. So one of the board members suggested that we engage with some of the residents of the North Wayne area, specifically adjacent to this parcel, and see if there's an opinion towards shingle or metal roofs. I don't think we got anything conclusively from the neighbors, but we were also asked to just speak with neighbors about the plans and show them what we were doing. So I knocked door to door, was able to meet with some of the neighbors, and we also used email to share plans with 16 residents within North Wayne.
So how many got back to you?
It's in here. I would say we spoke with, I actually spoke with 16 via email or meeting. I would say less than 50% expressed a preference towards any roof style, and I don't have the specific numbers if it was favoring a metal or architectural shingles, but I could look through the paperwork and tell you.
Well, before we get into your presentation, I'd just like to refresh everyone's memory that this is new construction. And this proposed property would be surrounded by contributing properties that have historic architectural significance. At our last meeting, I shared some of these types of houses and their designs that are in this little brochure, Rural Homes, that was a marketing piece for the original builders, Wendell and Smith, that goes into each of the designs. So this proposed house is surrounded, for example, by a gabled inn, a Japanese house, a medium cottage, a gabled inn, a pillar house, a tower house, and a medium cottage. So I would like to point that out as we go forward in this presentation. And again, if you have further interest, you can get this at the Radnor Historical Society. And it gives detail of each one of those housing designs. Okay, Brendan, please share your revised plans with us.
Sure. Does all the board members have copies? Am I working the computer here, or are we just going off the prints I have here? I can speak loudly. What's that? Sure. Where on this laptop is am I running this in terms of presentation? Or do you want me to put the plan? Oh, I see, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure what you're doing here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't understanding what you were saying. That's okay. Okay, thank you. So at the conclusion of the last HARB meeting, before it was turned over to comments from neighbors, the board expressed a lot of positive feelings and sentiments towards the architecture of the house. The one comment that was consistent was it was preferred that we have a full-height chimney. The original plan had a one-story chimney here that was also constructed out of hardy plank. So we went through and we added a two-story masonry fireplace that will have thin-cut real veneer stone on it. So you can see the elevation from the rear, elevation from the side. That was really the primary suggestion of the HARB board at the last meeting. And then, as I mentioned, we had a neighbor that expressed concern over whether or not metal roofs are appropriate under the HARB or in North Wayne. Again, as the applicant for the project, we don't have a strong opinion either way, whether we move forward with architectural shingles or metal roof. Our primary goal this evening was to come in and present two options, both with what the board had requested, and we're open to your suggestion on which type of roof material you prefer. I can tell you, I drove around North Wayne. I do have pictures of 9 homes in North Wayne that do have metal roofs. I have the addresses if you'd like to review those. Again, that's not necessarily us pushing for metal roofs as much as it is a demonstration that there are plenty of homes in the adjacent neighborhood that have used metal roofs to accent the architecture. So this would not be the only house, certainly within the area, that has a metal roof. Is there anything further you'd like me to? I think the plans, we covered the majority of them at the last meeting. I think this was the only real request of the HARB board.
I would like to have Andy, if you could, discuss the engineering.
Well, typically, when we receive a set of approved plans for a project like this, you know, the side yard setbacks and the building proposed are almost one and the same. It's very tight. So during the construction inspection process, during the footings and also foundation wall being installed, we would request in our plan review with the building permit application that the surveyors pin that so we have an accurate line. So that way, you know, we're making sure that we are within the bounds of where we are supposed to be. And that's a standard practice. I've worked with, on projects in the past with Brendan and don't anticipate any questions regarding that. That would not be an issue. But we would pin it with a registered surveyor, so we're not relying on the contractor to get that line, and therefore eliminating any error.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board? Questions?
I do have a question about the footing of that chimney. I realize it's not going to be that heavy because you're just using veneer stone, but it seems like it's stuck on. And I'm wondering if, you know, that extra, is it 2 feet, maybe 3, could be covered so it looks like it could be a real chimney?
Thank you. So actually, this chimney is going to be cantilevered. So the lot is 75 feet wide, and we have a 45-yard required aggregate setback. So we are, which is also why Andy mentioned the pinning. We have a 30-foot building restriction line, and our house is 30 feet wide. So we're actually cantilevering the fireplace off the side of the house, and with going 2-story, we're gonna have to add some support to the top of it as well. But below the fireplace, it's actually gonna match the existing foundation of what's there.
Okay, are you going to put plantings or something to disguise that?
Sure.
Missing 3 feet? I don't have any objection. I'm glad that you did take our comment and put the chimney in. I think it makes a nicer looking house, and it'll be easier for you to sell.
Thank you. We agree.
Any further comments from the board? Questions? Before I open it up to public comment? I suggest we open up for public comment. Is there any public comment? Please come to the podium, sir.
Can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay. Members of the board, I have a printed form of my presentation. If I can, would it be okay if I shared that with you? Yes? Okay. So, members of the board, my name is Michael Kearney. I live at 124 Walnut Avenue in Wayne. I'm a co-author of the North Wayne successful National Historic Register nomination back in 1987, and that's one of the reasons I'm here speaking with you tonight. Following a successful review of under the right to know, making a right to know request to the township, I examined Fox Lane Walnut's HARB application at the township building both on July 20th and on August 3rd. And having done that, I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to the plan presented to the HARB by Fox Lane at Walnut. For a certificate of appropriateness, the plan is not appropriate, and I have 2 major reasons for that. The residence is proposed to have a 40-foot setback, which is 10 to 15 feet smaller than the 50 to 55 feet typical of other contributing residences in the 1 and 200 blocks of Walnut Avenue. And Plan C01.1 within the HARB submission shows that. My second objection is that the overall barn-like design, it would be unduly conspicuous on the street, and it's made worse by the 40-foot setback. It has a flat-faced, symmetric facade reflecting neither the asymmetrical massed cross-gabled shingle-style designs built by Wendell and Smith. There are 13 shingle-style dwellings in the 100 block of Walnut, all constructed between 1887 and 1890. And they predominate on Walnut Avenue. And nor does it conform with the more general 1870 to 1910 contributing styles found in the district as a whole. So I wanted to provide some context. I wanted to go back to the National Register nomination, the successful one, from 1987, and just point out a couple of things that I'm quoting directly from that. One of the most unusual features of North Wayne is the stylistic coherence of groups of buildings. We're not talking about individual buildings, we're talking about groups of buildings. It was highly unusual, or it is highly unusual at the time we wrote the nomination. It's highly unusual for a coherent group of buildings to exist because typically there's always infill development in these kinds of properties. However, North Wayne was very fortunate in that the lot widths were at 75 feet precluded right, further subdivision, and so the houses that were put up there stayed, and the fact that it was a successful subdivision, there were dozens and dozens of houses all put up at about the same time, so there's this spatial continuity of the structures on Walnut Avenue and many of the other Wendell and Smith built areas in North Wayne. The houses are placed with a uniform setback of 50 feet, providing an open park-like experience. That's sort of the description in the nomination. And finally, North Wayne has a high level of physical coherence, which has remained intact for almost a century. This proposed residence at 113 Walnut would be the first residence constructed in the 100 block of of Walnut Avenue for more than a century. All right? There are craftsman-style bungalows that were built around 1920. There's a twin on Walnut Avenue that was built in 1906, but the remainder of the houses in the 100 block of Walnut were, again, Wendell and Smith, 1897 to 1900. And just to sort of show you what I think the National Historic nomination was referring to, I provided in your handout a map of what North Wayne looked like from an insurance map from 1902. And if you look at that, you can see there are all the various pillar house, medium cottage, tower house, round end house, Japanese house, all there in the 100 block of Walnut Avenue, all very neatly lined up with their setbacks almost exactly the same. And secondly, if you look at the footprints of the buildings there, and these are roughly the equivalent, the footprints that as they were first built, you'll see that they're not symmetric, they're asymmetric. There are kickouts, there are porches, there are all kinds of things which add variety, right, to the look of the houses in the neighborhood. And just one thing I want you to note on the map, if you'll see at the sort of the top center, there's a dotted rectangular item that says old foundation. That's the foundation of a house that was on the property we're talking about that burned down about 1900. And if you'll see from the way that the place they've actually put it, you can see that its setback was pretty much the same as all the other houses on the block were. And would point out probably the foundation for that house is still there. So I'm asking the board to deny this application for two reasons. One, based on the setback, and namely that in section C2, is that what I have? 178-7.C2, character defining development patterns, right? And the ordinance allows the HARB to consider denying applications based on these criteria. The criteria is the North Wayne Historic District's overall development pattern is a multiple block grid street pattern of street-facing homes of varying scales that mainly share a common range of front setbacks. Of all the things that the drafters of the ordinance could have put in there, that's the one that they put in there to define what they believe that North Wayne, a key element of North Wayne's development pattern. And secondly, in section 178.7.F2, preserving the overall relationship among the buildings within each district's development pattern. And a residence that pushes 10 to 15 feet a setback out closer to the street doesn't do that, in my opinion. And secondly, talking about the design of the building itself, again, the character defining development, the character defining patterns. The North Wayne district includes mainly 1870s to 1910s design styles and features. I put it to you that I call it barn-like because I very have difficulty describing this structure in any other way because it has a flat facade, it has flat sides, it has a flat back, it's rectangular. It doesn't resemble any of the other houses in the 100 block of Walnut, nor the 200 block for that matter. What they need, and it does not preserve the roof shapes, with that large front gable. So this symmetric front gable, which goes the full width of the building at 30 feet. It's all symmetric. The door's in the middle. The windows are, there's 5 bays for the windows. None of that reflects the Victorian architecture of the block, or, in my opinion, the 1870s to 1910 design of the district as a whole. The Wendell and Smith homes in particular feature this asymmetric massing with cross gables in which at least some portion of the roof ridge is running parallel to the street. And what that does is it takes the top of the house and pushes it back so that these tall houses, which are on narrow lots, are not quite so forbidding. They're not all sitting up right up there in front. The parallel and the cross gable design pushes things back and makes for a much less imposing and intrusive structure. And the proposed building does not do that. So as a result, and based on these two things, I urge you to deny the application until these deficiencies are remedied. And I have personally visited or communicated with 12 neighbors, including 10 residences that are on Walnut Avenue. I have signed petitions from each of them supporting my position. So I have 12 people in all, 1 on Oak, 10 on Walnut, 1 somewhere else. I've lost count. All right, but there's a dozen. So I have a dozen signatures from folks, and some of these folks were the same people who signed the preference for the metal or shingle roof, which is fine, right? I mean, people have a preference for a metal or shingle roof. This isn't about the preference for a metal or shingle roof. This is about just an inappropriate building, right? Which, when the final design comes through, I hope will have an appropriate metal or shingle roof. So if with that, I'll leave you if you have any questions.
Well done.
My name is
Sure.
Joe Morrissey.
Hi, Joe.
I'm one of the owners of Fox Lane Homes.
Please come up front.
Yep.
Thank you. I used to live at 18 Fairston Road, so not too far away. I'm one of the owners of Fox Lane Homes and one of the ones that would actually build this house. Out of the other houses that you looked at in North Wayne, how many of the other ones, obviously the historical ones, are 30 feet wide?
I can tell you my house, which is a medium cottage, right, and I have scale drawings for it, is 30 feet wide.
Okay. Do you know how many of the other ones are 30 feet wide?
Well, I can tell you probably that all the other 7 medium cottages are, because I have a medium cottage and they're all done from the same design. I haven't gone out and surveyed the entire neighborhood, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
But there are 30-foot examples. Well, you have 9 examples, right? You have 9 examples with metal roofs. I'm countering with 7 examples of medium cottages that are 30 feet wide.
Fair enough. I believe on the 200 block, is it 233 Walnut Avenue? I believe there was a new house built there. I moved to Fairston in 2007. It was after that.
233.
Is it Poplar? Oh, Poplar, 233 Poplar Avenue. There was a new house built there. I know you were tying in that no houses have been built on the 100 block.
I can't say for sure, but I think that was a tear down of a non-contributing structure.
Got it, but a new house built on
Yes.
that lot, okay.
But again, it was on Poplar, not on Walnut.
Right, so still tied to the whole. My point is, a couple points. One, we're limited to 30 feet wide as far as with what we can build, and we felt that the architecture of the house was really nice. I believe when we came in front of the board 2 months ago, I believe everybody agreed with that. Everyone was on board other than wanting the chimney on the side. We agree with you with 30 feet wide. That's why we did the big front porch, obviously with a lot of the houses in North
Well,
Wayne.
I live in a 30-foot wide house that has an asymmetric front and a big front wraparound porch. So, and I'm not saying you have to copy my house, but what I am suggesting is that you take, to the chair's point, take a look at the designs that have been done by some great Philadelphia architects for these houses that exist on Walnut Avenue and elsewhere in the historic district, and take your clues from there.
And I would just say, on the counterpoint is, we use Reen Hoffman, who's a local architect who does a lot of architecture in this area and is considered a pretty well-known, really good architect. And like I said, there's always different ways to build it, and I'm not saying we wouldn't look at stuff or sit down with you afterwards to talk through it. I just don't necessarily think when you look at this elevation that it wouldn't fit in with the neighborhood. And obviously you live on Walnut. I've walked Walnut thousands of times between Ferriston and Christopher.
Right.
So I totally get your point. We're just trying to add to the value of the township for the neighborhood and the look. We're not trying to come in to put some crazy house
Right,
on
but-
the property.
The flat facade with the 40-foot setback, together, those two things together.
But you do have a porch.
Pardon me?
You have a porch on the front, so it's not,
Yep.
I mean.
No. My house has a setback of 55.25 feet, maybe 53 feet if you count the front of the porch, as do most of the houses
I'd just
on
like to make
Walnut.
one
You can
comment.
walk along and,
One at a time, please, and then allow the other person to
no, I'm not
respond.
missing the side yard.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
I'd have to double check the setbacks.
Do you have it?
Okay. The front yard setback, my understanding is the front yard setback for R2 is 40 feet. But this isn't the zoning board. This is the Historic Architectural Review Board. And what I'm arguing is, in this case, the HARB has the authority, I believe you have the authority, to tell the builder that in order to build an appropriate structure, it needs a larger setback.
Brandon, for just clarity.
Yeah.
The plan that is in front of us meets the setback requirements of today.
Correct.
I obviously, you're talking about historical setback.
Exactly.
So,
Right. I'm not trying to make the zoning argument. It's clear that, it's clear the developers and the architects have gone to considerable lengths to be within the restrictions, the R2 restrictions.
So I have a small, I don't have a full-scale version of the plot plan, I wasn't anticipating discussing setbacks. But what this does show is you're not going to see it, but I can hand it to you. The adjoining parcel next door, which is the twin homes, it does show where the front of our home sits with those, and it's almost in direct alignment with the front of those houses. So this house is not going to protrude. We wouldn't want to build a house that's going to sit closer to the street. It doesn't make sense to do that. We don't want to build a house that's going to be out of character with the neighborhood. So I'm happy to pass this around. That shows the twin homes, and that shows the front of our home. So we're not,
Brandon, this is full size plan.
thank you.
Okay, and there is a twin house, as I said, there's a twin house, I think it's is it 115, 117? That probably has the smallest setback of any of the houses on the block, right? I believe, right, and again, I do not have a full-size version of the plans to be able to measure off where the relationship between the adjoining buildings, but I do know that I have examined the plot plan, a measured plot plan for 111 Walnut Avenue, which is the house on the other side, and it has a 55-foot setback.
It's 40 here.
So here's this actually shows our property right here, which the required front yard setback is 40 feet, which we've met.
Right.
And this is the survey showing the twins next door, which shows their front porches in near direct alignment with ours.
But it's not. You're still sticking, it still looks like about 5 feet or so there. And I put it to you to look at this house, where the setback is 55 feet.
But that's not.
Along with all the other houses on the block. So I don't think you should cherry pick. You should cherry pick the twin house, all right, for its setback and ignore the setbacks of all the others.
But you chose to cherry pick one in a block of Walnut versus all.
One person at a time, please, and then we could have further comment.
Good evening. I'm going to ask if I can speak. My name's Gia Raffaelli. I'm general counsel for Fox Lane Homes. I reviewed this project with them ahead of time. I tried to review your ordinance and your directions ahead of this meeting. And I just want to comment that I think we're getting off what I believe is the appropriate discussion here. I believe your ordinance asks you to provide input and direction in your certificate of appropriateness for a range of homes of varying setbacks inconsistent with the North Wayne area. So you can't pick one house and say you have to be, this far back. You're looking at a range of the area, and I think that's appropriate. Just like you can tell us that we had to be 10 feet from the street and and then violate your own zoning ordinance. I don't think it's appropriate to say one house should be 55 feet back because a lot of the other ones are 55 feet back. I think that what we've demonstrated is that we do meet, the general theme of your required ordinances and the design features that you're looking at. And to get so specific to say we have to be 55 feet back, I think goes beyond what we should be talking about this evening. And that's,
No,
just
I
wanted
didn't
to
say you
bring-
had to be 55 feet back.
Well,
I was just pointing out a second example, which weakens your argument, I think. That's all. Right? What the ordinance says is a common range of setbacks. All right? This setback is not within the common range, I believe.
Well, it is within the range.
No, not if it's the largest one. Or, excuse me, not if it's the smallest setback among all the buildings on Walnut Avenue anyway. It's not in the common range.
But I believe also we're not looking to go for any variances. What is more important?
No, if you push the setback, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt.
If we meet, we tried very hard to meet all of the zoning requirements for this particular house, before we came here, so that we wouldn't have to come back and say, can we have a variance and go 3 feet over closer here just because so we can have this nice feature? We went and made sure that we complied with the zoning. We believe that we do. We're not looking to go and encroach in any setbacks or anything. We're looking to build what we think is an appropriate house for the neighborhood. So I just don't know that it's appropriate to get into the zoning of where the setback is if we know that we comply.
The township has already approved their grading program.
Right, but as I'm saying, this is not the zoning hearing board, right? The plan can be approved because it meets the zoning code. I'm saying or arguing that the plan violates the HARB ordinance because the buildings in the district, right, have a common range of setbacks. That's the major point. It's made about North Wayne in the ordinance itself. And a building with a setback of 40 feet seems to me is not within the common range of setbacks. And therefore, I think you're perfectly within your rights, and I'm asking you to deny the application, along with a dozen more of my neighbors.
Is there any further public comment? Please come up, ma'am. Thank you.
My name's Holly Ferguson. I live at 223 Walnut Avenue. I'm sorry.
It's on, okay.
Holly Ferguson, 223 Walnut Avenue. I too lived in the neighborhood when the HARB was established. And I would just like to comment that I think this conversation is extremely appropriate for you to be hearing and to think about. The reason that a HARB was formed was because an old house was torn down, 2 houses were built on one lot, met all the zoning requirements of the time. And the HARB was put in place because it's a very special area, and sometimes things shouldn't be done according to those things. There should be exceptions, and they should be not allowed. And it hasn't happened since we put the HARB in place. There's a lot of other houses that were there before HARB that I would hope if HARB had been in place, they wouldn't have been built to begin with. So I would just push back a little bit and say that I think all of these things should be considered, and now's the time to consider them, and they are an appropriate conversation for this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? I have a question for the house owner. Would you be willing to entertain any of these suggestions?
No, I
No.
don't think we would. Again, we have a approved grading permit with the township. It's a tight lot, and
It is.
we did a lot of work, as Gia mentioned, to make everything work. And changing the footprint of the house or moving it unfortunately would alter other things that would have an adverse impact on the value of the property or our ability to construct certain amenities. I will draw your attention, if you can see this, this property is 210 Poplar Avenue. And if we're talking about objecting to the architecture of our property, this house is also within the HARB jurisdiction. And I would argue that the front elevation of our home, while being somewhat similar, is far superior in terms of the look. This is a house, I mean, it has a front entry garage. We're contemplating a two-car detached garage that would be appropriate in terms of the architecture.
Is that a contributing property that you're showing us? I'm sorry, with all the,
It's on 210 Poplar Avenue.
okay.
But it's still under the HARB jurisdiction.
I want to call attention to the fact that a contributing property is something that is contributing, and a non-contributing property is something that was built after a contributing property was demolished before this committee existed.
Okay.
So my question to you is that a historic house? I can't see that far because there's too many things in front of me.
No, it's a newer construction home.
Okay, so you can't really use that as an example.
Correct.
So please don't use that as an
I
example.
misunderstood the contributing versus non-contributing. I'm looking at North Wayne, and I'm finding examples of homes that are,
You can't use an example of a non-contributing property
I
to
understand.
justify your non-contributing property.
I understand that now.
Any further public comment? Please approach, ma'am.
I live on Walnut Avenue, and we did not know that the last, well, it doesn't matter, I'm going to shout anyway. This microphone? Oh, we did not know that this building was coming the last time, or we would have come to present then. When they talk about canvassing, we all live on Walnut Avenue, and no one came up and down Walnut Avenue to ask us about this type of building or roof or anything else until we heard it like last week that this was happening, and that's, I just wanted to establish a timeline that we're coming into this after they've had one round, but it's because we were told, most of the people that we went up and down the street and talked to had no idea that these plans were in and that this was happening. I just wanted to state that. And none of us were interviewed on the roof style.
Can I just respond quickly to that?
Sure.
Just as a reminder to the board, there's no notification requirement. This is not a variance meeting. It was a suggestion of HARB that we speak to some neighbors of North Wayne, review the plans. We weren't seeking approval of the plans, but there is no specific requirement under the HARB ordinance that we speak with neighbors or we notify neighbors within a certain distance of the property. We did speak with neighbors adjacent to this property. We did it when we bought the property. We were getting ready to do test pits so people wouldn't be alarmed. But again, there's no requirement. So we didn't go canvassing door to door because it's not a requirement. We did speak with neighbors. We thought we don't have a requirement to do it, but we thought it was a neighborly gesture to do at least speak with the people who are as close to this property as it moves forward. So I just want to remind the board, we don't have a specific notification requirement. If we were doing a variance, we would.
We are aware of that.
Yeah, I would also like to say, too, that I can see, as far as the neighbors and their concerns here, that some type of notification would have been really, really helpful. Actually, it would have been really helpful for the board to have you, sir, have presented at the last meeting when we offered a continuance. It's my understanding, it's my understanding with the Planning Commission that planning or zoning, I'm not exactly sure which now, after reviewing some Board of Commissioners meetings, that when there is something before these boards, those boards, there's like a 500 to 1,000-foot distance where a mailing goes out to the neighbors to alert them on what's going to happen before those boards. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen for Harb. I think in general, we would like that to happen. We've argued for that before, and hopefully, maybe some point in the intermediate future, maybe the Harb can have a similar notification plan. I'll revisit that as best I can, because I was a pretty big advocate for that when I first came on this board. So to prevent things like we can have today, which can get much worse and hostile and unpleasant and all that nasty kind of stuff, and just like we need more of that in our world today. I don't think so. Okay. With that being said, is there comments from the board?
Hello. Can I ask a question about your notification process then? Looking back at the addresses you sent, I see 111, 108, 118, and 121. Of those, 2 are in direct view of your property. Is that right?
So 111 Walnut is property directly to the left.
Okay,
Sat in the front porch, discussed the plans. They chose not to sign.
that's fine. I'm just trying to get a sense of how many neighbors you spoke to and how you approach people on the street.
113 is a twin home. We sold that property to the owner. She reviewed all the plans and signed off on them before.
Okay, her email I don't think was included, but,
Yeah, she reviewed all these plans before she bought the twin. We had to make those representations before we sold it, just so she understood what was going to be built next to it. 119, I knocked on the front door, did not answer.
okay, so of the ones you spoke to that you sent to us, I see 111, 121, 118, and 108.
Correct, and 106 is an apartment building. 106? Oh, sorry, 116, excuse me, 116 is an apartment building, so did not knock on the front door.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question, please come up to the front.
My name's Doug Ford. I live at 108. So, I mean, my wife, I think, signed the petition, but she was managing my kid and a dog trying to run out the door, so she really wasn't sure what she was signing, just kind of. But I did speak with you, I think, over the phone. And, I mean, from my perspective, I live across the street. I'm a proponent of something being built there. After looking, you did send me the plans, which I appreciate the transparency there. I mean, you know, I do want something built there. I'm not sure if this is the right structure. That being said, there wasn't really any, you know, lines to give me an understanding of the footing, and I'm not an expert when looking at these plans, but my preference is Walnut. You know, I've lived there for 5 years now. You look down the road and you don't have, you know, houses protruding, so I would say that you know, at least a discussion would be helpful, or notification before, you know, what kind of house is being built there, what's the kind of the lines, you know, and I understand you guys you need to make money and whatever, but, you know, if you would take some feedback from the neighborhood, would probably be helpful. I think could be resolved, because I think everyone wants something and has no opposition to something being built there, but maybe just a little bit, some adjustments, and maybe a little bit of the size would go a long way, but, yeah, I mean, we didn't then sign the opposition to it, so. Yes.
Thanks.
I know it's getting late. Can I just throw out one idea, just quickly? So the inspiration for our design, which I should know the address, but I don't, was this house. You might know the address? Yeah. So
Is that the same non-contributing property that the gentleman submitted before?
No, this has to be one of the original houses, I believe.
I think the house is, I can't say for sure, I don't know.
The reason why, from a size standpoint, so if you look at that house compared to what we have, It does have a little bit of a, what I would call an eyebrow going all the way across the front. Slide over. Better. So what we could probably do to kind of match this up, we could kind of round the window, half round the window on the top, literally to mimic what's right here. And then we could take this roof, which I think the gentleman had the concern about being too flat. We could bring the roof out on that to give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more contour, which I think would kind of give the potential look you want. Obviously, we have no problem doing if it's easier just to do a flat roof there, take the little turn gable off. We were doing the turn gable because there is another house on Walnut, I think the opposite side of the street, that has a little, couple of them have little turn gable with some gingerbread and stuff. That's where we were trying to kind of match that, to try to get the kind of look that we're going for. But if we needed to go flat, other than a little bit of.
Not a 5-bay design.
Right. But I don't think every house has to be exactly the same. It's houses built 100 years ago were built because they were 100 years ago. Modern houses, people want more light. So just because it was built 100 years ago, if there's a better way to do it.
Well, there are hundreds of people living in North Wayne in old houses that wanted to have.
Which I was one of them. I currently live in 100, I'm totally in agreement. At the same point, there's a lot of people that like light in their house.
Okay.
If you build a new house, you want it to work, so.
But it's in a historic district,
Completely agree.
and once you're in the district, the whole point of it, being into that district is that you fit in.
Yeah, do you think someone who's gonna buy in a historic district wants to have the only house that doesn't fit in?
And see, that's right. I think it would totally fit in. Yeah.
The location is great, but you have this historic district that,
But other,
that's exactly
we,
why it was formed.
other than the windows across the front, we could literally mimic this other house in the historic district and make it look almost identical.
Historic district, are you talking about the district? Because every time we talk about the district, you guys talk about contributing and non-contributing properties. We're talking about the district, which is North Wayne. And there are homes, you know, the
What I'm actually talking about though is Walnut Avenue and the relationship of this house to the other houses on Walnut Avenue. Everyone realizes that the district as a whole has houses from varying time periods, from say 1870 to 1910. But we're talking about sort of the spatial coherence of Walnut Avenue and Wendell and Smith homes around it. And I don't see that, I hate using the word cherry picking again, but I could go over to Radnor Street Road and find a stone colonial that's a contributing structure in the, within the district, and I could then justify those houses at the corner of Poplar and Woodland as being consistent with the buildings in the district. So you can't pick one. Plus, I don't know what the width of the block is here, nor do I know what the square footage of the house is. I don't know what the setback is. This is Poplar Avenue, which is R3, not R2. So again, I'm not sure it's a. Well, I'll have to check the zoning.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
At our last meeting, I actually went and found the total square footage of each of those properties on Walnut, and this proposed house is well within that as far as its footprint.
As far, no one's arguing about, I'm not arguing about the footprint of the house, I'm arguing about the setback.
So going back to my initial, we would be happy to add the roof to match the house on Poplar. We'll get the exact address for you. But we would match that. We would obviously do shingle on the metal roof. We take the little turn gable out pretty much to match it, and then we add the half round window up top. If that would make the board feel, it would help it fit in more with the historical feel of the neighborhood.
You have a
Can I
comment?
just mention that the fact that the chimney is cantilevered, the chimney came all the way down and the door no setback, that's why it has to be cantilevered out over the chimney. So if the chimney is
So the answer with that is, that came up,
before,
2 months ago. We proposed actually putting the chimney in the middle house, similar to what it is on the twin, to get that look. I believe one of the board members did not like that look, so that's why we did that route. But it came up 2 months ago.
Comment?
Regarding the chimney thing, and we live next door, I've been up front with them. I'm the person that invited him over to my porch to discuss like our concerns about the property. And he had said that Harb had suggested they put it on the ground, but there's a lot of precedent for it being on the roof. Ours is, I counted at least 6 in our street. They're not all on the 100 block. Just to.
To build a fake chimney in the middle of the house and a cantilevered chimney that went part way up that would be functional, right? And
Yeah.
Right,
Correct, so.
okay.
Yeah, you're correct.
So just to clarify, that middle of the house chimney was the non-functional cosmetic one?
It would just been for looks.
Yes.
Comment, please?
I understand, John Velutini, 106 Walnut Avenue, and I understand Michael's concern about the flat facade. So I don't know what's going to come out of that between you and Harb and all that, but when I look at the flat facade, I mean, if I look at the house, if I look at a bucket of new construction, you know, relative to new construction, looks like a nice house. But relative to the neighborhood, the flat facade and what's the depth of the porch, do you know off the top of your head? 8
So
feet?
full functioning furniture, 8 feet's the good
Okay.
size for a good size porch.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. It seems a little, it seems a little shallow relative to the height of the house.
Do you like the look of this house?
That's a beautiful home,
This one here?
yeah.
So if we literally mirrored that, other than the additional windows and not having the additional porch here, would you like the look of that minus that?
I mean, I'd have to see it, you know.
It's always easier in color than it is in black and white. Black and white obviously isn't the best presentation. I'm just saying the house would look very similar to what you have here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would tell you,
I-
from
I-
my experience, I would walk by that house in Poplar and say, it's a gorgeous house. It's a gorgeous house.
It's not on Walnut, and there's 3 other like that on Poplar, so it fits in with the neighborhood.
But that's where I,
How about the houses on Hammond Walnut? They're on Walnut, they were built in, what, the 1960s? And they're nothing like any of these we're contemplating.
They're non-contributing.
Yeah, but they were never.
But you go back to that, but we were talking about Poplar versus Walnut, and then as soon as we shift to Walnut, you go back to
No,
the
the thing
contributing versus
is that
You're talking about 2 or 3 non-contributing houses.
One at a time, please.
Opposed to the
One at a
30 or
time.
so that are contributing, that are from Wendell and Smith. All right, so it's not, you can find, always, in the district, you can always find exceptions and things which would support your case, but I'm trying to, you know, get people to think of the fabric of the neighborhood itself, lot by lot, one lot after another, after another, after another, for almost 2 full blocks, filled with beautiful masterpieces of shingle-style architecture by the best 19th century Philadelphia architects. And this particular proposal, I'm not saying any proposal, this particular proposal is inappropriate for that particular part of the district. And you can't look at the houses that are 5 blocks away and say, okay, well, that one's okay, so I'll put it here, and not look at all the other houses that are around it.
but
Yes, ma'am.
is the Harp just for Walnut Avenue, or is it for the entire district?
There's 3 historic districts. There's North Wayne, Luella, and South Wayne.
But there's not one just for Walnut Avenue?
No. Yes, ma'am.
Poplar's lot sizes are smaller, therefore this house that we're looking at is a smaller scale house. So if you take this size house proportionally speaking and make it the size of the proposed house, the scale is going to be, it's not going to have that sort of petite style like the houses are on. It's going to be scaled up, much larger, and that's, the idea behind the Victorian houses on Walnut Avenue is they have niches and areas that break up your mass block rectangle. The other, and the porches are much deeper than they proposed. And the thing is, if you make the porch deeper, that even pushes you closer to the street. So I just, again,
Could you provide an example, like an address that has a deeper porch than 8 feet? 8 feet is a very large front porch. It's certainly consistent with what people would want. It certainly provides the opportunity for outdoor entertaining, furniture, you know, but to blanketly say that there are other properties that have larger or deeper front porches, I think there's no specific examples.
they go around the side.
Right, I understand that, we can't do that unfortunately. If we had the
But
space.
that's part of the whole, what she's saying.
You do it in the back.
We have the porch in back.
Yeah, you have a porch in the back that wraps around, doesn't it?
Cannot wrap around.
No, you can't
Okay.
wrap it around, yeah, so.
That front porch on your proposed plan, that goes in front of the front of the house, right?
Correct.
Yeah, It's a
so
full,
8 feet, so you have the house and
the
it's
full
8 feet.
porch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah,
That was
the thought
my
is people
understanding
could
from the last meeting.
Entertain out there, sit out there. Yeah, it's got a full, that's why, for whatever reason, when it's like this, I know it's tough to see, but it's got a full 8 foot. We showed on the original drawing, a black, stainless steel metal roof.
This line
One
right
of the
here.
neighbors had brought up asphalt shingles before, we can find.
That's the roof right
Yeah,
there.
but it's a full 8 feet, so it's not a flat structure.
Okay, we
Having
have
said
a
that-
question for you.
Yep.
Is it possible for you to give us some kind of a 3D rendering so that we could understand how your roof is, you say yourself a flat fixture is very difficult, and you're changing the design. I'm wondering if it's possible that your software could give us at least a 3D rendering of the front, or so it isn't flat, so it shows it.
Yeah, no, we could definitely do a color rendering. Having said that, though, this is a color rendering, and I'm pretty much, we'll mirror the windows, we'll mirror the roof line here, and then we'll just do a flat roof straight across here, and then we'll get rid of the turn gable. So we'll pretty much give you exactly, other than the little bit of the half round here.
If you could do,
I can't see the picture that much, but is the front door centered or on the left?
This one, on the right.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to make one comment on a 3D presentation. Of all the time that I've been on the board for over 5 years, we only had one presentation that was in 3D, but boy, did that say a lot. It was wonderful to be able to see those proportions in multi-dimensional space. I believe it was Gardner Fox who did that, the architect. And it really made a difference in the presentation. So maybe if that's something you would like to consider, because the visuals really explain a lot. And it seems like the questions from the neighbors, they want those dimensions. And I think it would really, really help if you could do that. Would you be willing to do that?
Yes, we'd be willing to do a rendering so you can see it. But just to confirm, if we do the things that we talked about to more mirror the house on Poplar, we just don't want to come back next month and then the neighbors have something to, we just need the guidance, like, that works, and we'd be okay with that, based on obviously seeing the 3D rendering. But we just don't want to go another month and then something else comes up and, hey, what about this? And so we just want to kind of.
No, I understand, and we're not trying to prevent you from building. I want you to understand
No, I
that we do want economic investment in our township. But this is, as I have said many times, one of these things is not like the other. And it's going to stick out if you don't take more architectural cues from the houses on Walnut. So, I mean, you're just in the design stage, so you can move things around on the exterior. I'm wondering if you would entertain, say, moving the door to one side or the other and not having it in the center, or making a big window where you have 2 windows. That would give you even more light. I don't want to I don't want to send you completely back to the drawing board, but the facade of this building is clearly very important to the neighbors. We can't deny you the setback, it's in the zoning.
Right.
But,
And it's important to us, too. Like, we want a house that we're proud of, that we drive through, and looks good after the fact. So it's not like we're pushing back on that. We just want to make sure that it's, when we do the things that you feel we need to do to get it to a point where you feel good about it, because my experience is you're never going to make everybody happy, and if next month we come back and we still have one or two people that are unhappy, and the board says, yeah, that house looks really good, I just hopeful that the board will.
Well, I totally appreciate that, but I say let's give it one more chance. And I'd also like to say to the neighbors that if these gentlemen do that, it's a wonderful thing. Yes, sir.
So, a question of information. Is the reason that the applicant will not move the footprint back another 10 feet, are there problems in the backyard of this property? Is that the reason why you're resisting moving the setback, the front setback?
There's no, but to get a, you're gonna have a detached garage in the back, and for a driveway, to be able to.
Is it an existing
No, it'll
garage?
be a new garage.
But you could redesign the garage to give you another 10 feet, couldn't you?
We can't, there's with the setbacks, there's a portion of the lot that's in the floodplain, we can't alter.
The floodplain, is that the reason why we have problems with the setback in the front, the floodplain?
There's no problem with
There's
it.
no problem with the front. The front is consistent, we've shown it. The front may be 2 feet in front of the porches that are already there on Walnut Avenue, so I don't know what's talking about.
We can't tell from the plan.
I just showed you the plan.
No,
This is a scale plan.
You say that it doesn't, right, I want to know what the measurement is. Right. Width? No, how much what the setback of, there's a twin house to the right of your proposal that has a deep front porch. I don't know what the setback of that is.
We're totally
Andy?
fine.
Just if I could take a second. This meeting is televised and being recorded, so if people could go up to the podium, where the process is to identify yourself and your address, but more importantly, you'll be speaking into a microphone, and people who will watch this meeting will have a better ability to hear what everyone's comments are. That's all. Thank you.
So, from our standpoint, we're fine with looking at the front elevation and making sure that it fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. But as far as the setback.
not the rest of the neighborhood, the rest of the street.
The rest of Walnut Avenue.
This is a really good place to take your hints. I think these are the drawings on the street. I really feel probably that poplar is not really the place to take snippets.
Even though it's all within the historic district.
We're talking about the view of the street. So, no, it's not on the street.
So back to my original, we're fine with looking at the front elevation. As far as the setback, we're gonna meet the zoning with regard to the setback. We're not looking to go push it back even farther. We're gonna stick with what the current zoning is.
How about a 3D presentation?
Yeah, we'll do a color rendering to give you an idea with a 3D so they can see what the porch looks like in the front.
Yeah, I hate to extend our meetings longer than necessary, but considering that this is such a contentious case, I mean, I quite clearly see it too. If we could just have a little bit more thought onto it, and in particular that 3D presentation. If you don't know how to do that, we've never done that, I would suggest you contact Gardner Fox, the architects, because one of their architects did a fabulous job. I mean, it was quite clear, and wasn't a lot of further things that we said after that presentation. It was quite clear what we were looking for. To the neighbors, I say thank you again for being here and presenting. I would suggest in the future that the earlier you come here, the better. So we can work.
Without notification, this
Oh,
this was...
entirely understandable, and I would really like to revisit that issue so that with cases in particular like this, that the community is notified in some way, like what happens with zoning and planning. But right now, we don't have that. Yes, sir.
Well, I just do have sort of one question I would like to ask. I'm sorry, I don't know your... Oh, Ms. Oakes. You said that you didn't think the board could override the zoning setbacks? Is that correct? That you couldn't, the board could not, in the interest of historic, in the interest of doing what the ordinance says, that you could not tell this developer to change the setbacks, say to 50 feet?
We are an advisory board. We don't have any implementation authority. So we could suggest, and we can recommend, we can strongly recommend, but we cannot ask an applicant to do something that they are not, that they are by right allowed to do. The township ordinance, as it stands now, allows 40-foot setback in this district.
But you're saying you could not deny the application for a certificate of appropriateness based on the setback? Even though the certificate of appropriateness is advisory? No, it is 40 feet. Yeah,
The zoning allows this.
yes.
We cannot deny it because it is allowed. We can recommend against it,
Okay,
but we cannot deny it.
okay.
That's an important distinction.
All right, no, but I wanted to make sure that I understood sort of what the board felt its prerogatives were and weren't based. Okay, thank you.
Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the twin property next door, and you're renovating that? Okay. Has that, what's been done to the front yard of that house been brought to Harb? They paved the front lawn and made it a parking lot and put up a big modern retaining wall. And I was just wondering whether that was something that would come under Harb.
We only address modifications to the structure,
And
not to the
retaining
grounds.
wall in front of the front porch.
That's a different issue. I
And
apologize.
a driveway in the front yard.
That would be reviewed under the grading permit application process. That would not go in front of this board.
Yeah, I don't believe we...
That would be the Township Engineering Office.
Really egregious in the neighborhood as well as right next door to them, this situation, so.
Okay.
Wanted to bring that up.
Do you have anything further to add?
No.
Okay. Well, hold on. I would just like to conference with the board.
Knock,
Okay,
knock.
everyone. We're back.
We're back.
Thank you for your patience.
I want to say to all the neighbors that came out how very grateful we are that you're willing to get involved. Thank you. We've sat in so many meetings where just the applicants have been here, and it's really rewarding to us as commissioners, as representatives of the HARB, that you're willing to say something to us. And
We need
have-
you here more often.
Please come. Please talk to your county commissioner, because they're the ones who are going to make that change. We've been asking for it, your township commissioner, I'm sorry. We've been asking for this change. I've been on this board for almost 6 years, and we've always been asking for it. So please talk to your township commissioner. This is important, and, we need to get that done. To the applicant, we are very grateful that you are willing to work with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. We hear what you say. We understand what you want to do. But we are tasked with making sure whatever you do is not going to be a sore thumb. And the way that the neighbors are talking, I think that there are some design concessions that you're going to need to make if we're going to give you the concessions of setbacks and floodplains and all that. So come back to us with a more thoughtful facade, with, more irregularity, if you will, a little more asymmetricality, a little less rectangular. All of those houses have bump outs, and, they're fantastical designs. And yours can be one of them. But it needs a little more thoughtfulness, so we are continuing you yet again, and apologies for the delay.
Also, too, I'd like just to say again, a 3D presentation would do wonders. So, do we have a motion?
Much better job next month, I promise.
Well, thank you again. Do we have a motion for a continuance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second? Okay. We have a motion for a continuance. The motion was seconded. There was another vote for a continuance, and I also say yay.
Yay.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you in September. Thank you again for the neighbors being here.
Brent, if I could add site plan. Brent, take the site plan back.
Yeah, I'm not even.
Okay. Moving right along. New business, 111 Walnut Avenue, Wayne, PA. Demo existing garage and rebuild on existing foundation on exact same footprint. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to give some basic background on this property. According to Radnor Township records, they say it is a contributing property. It was built between 1885 and 1889. The architect was Frank Price. The builder was Wendell and Smith. Radnor Historical Society's Historic Resource Survey says the historic name of this house is a Japanese house, built circa 1889 to 1888. The architect was Price Brothers. The builders were Wendell and Smith. I'd like to make an additional note here on 111 Walnut. There were no outbuildings on a 1886 map or an 1892 map on Radnor Historical Society's website. Please introduce yourself and share your plans with us.
Hey, I'm Martha Wheaton Robertson. I was in front of you guys last year for 421 St. David's, that house you like. That was never built because of the cost of lumber. Okay, so this existing garage,
So I remember that. So it didn't get built because of the lumber
the cost
issue?
of lumber. It's,
Wow.
they
Okay.
still, it's crazy. They want to build it, but they can't afford it. Hmm?
How do you do that?
How do we get the overhead to work?
The overhead?
Oh, there it is. Oh, not very clear. Okay, so the part of this garage is existing. It's got a stone foundation, and we're not exceeding that. The current structure is absolutely breaking down. It's not safe to even park a car in there. And it has a low, very low pitch hip roof. Obviously, it was not built with the original house. It was added on later. So we are just duplicating the garage somewhat, but I'm trying to also add in some elements of design from the house. And the house has hipped roofs. The whole house, it's all hip roofs, hip dormers, hipped everything. The problem was these people need storage. They have, their existing basement is all stone and it's very damp. So they can't store certain things down there. And they have limited storage in the attic because of the extreme angle. So I designed a roof that combines elements of the existing garage and elements of the house that have, I've got dormers on each side. The part that faces the street, the facade facing the street, has the two garage doors, carriage house doors, and the existing garage has that. And I kept a hipped roof design pretty much matching the house, and a dormer, hipped dormer, for more space inside there, and I have dormers on both the front and the rear. The windows we're duplicating the windows that are there now. This window in the front, side windows are duplicating the house. Those are the windows on the house currently. They will be simulated divide light to match the house. The trim will match the house. The siding will. It'll be a combination of clapboard with a few shingle siding up top. The roofing we're going to match the shingles on the existing house. The stone we will just repoint and repair as necessary.
I have a question. What is the height of the existing garage?
Okay, the height of the existing garage is a little over 8.5 feet, and we're proposing 9 feet,
Okay,
just so we can get an 8-foot door in there.
okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
This is one of those Japanese-style houses?
Yes.
And were you planning to put sort of that little flourish on the roof that the rest of the
We
house?
could, if you'd like.
I
We
think
could.
it would make it look like if it's not going to be economically onerous,
Right.
I think it would make it look very much like it does belong to that house. That's such a striking architectural feature, more so than the coloring or the siding materials.
Okay, so I think what I can do is we can do a little scoop right up here at this peak
That would be
and
perfect.
come down there.
Yeah.
So it's only the actual dormer, this one would have a scoop to it. We could do that. Just means cutting the angle in the rafters.
It's also good to see that the original foundation will be used.
Yes.
Will still be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things we strive to do in preserving materials and original footprints is what
Right.
we do too.
Bob, could I speak to that, please?
Surely.
A few questions. On your last page on ASP, it appears that the existing garage is over the property line. Is that the case?
No,
I mean, just visually when looking at the drawing from Gardner Fox.
bring the other,
We brought our builder. He could speak to it. I'm Jane. I'm the property owner of 111.
The microphone's not on.
Is it not on? Is it on? It might be in my mask. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. If you look at, you can see the pins. The actual property itself, like the actual structure is within the pins. It is like very, very close to the property line, and the overhang is on an easement in perpetuity. I brought the copy of the easement with me.
The reason I bring this up, and I believe I spoke with your builder about this, and I speak to a lot of them. So I have this wrong, I apologize. Your plans say to verify the foundation, which is very common of structures of this type. It'll have a rubble foundation. The point that I'd like to make here is that if the foundation is deemed unsuitable to build on, which happens occasionally, that we have to be very careful that you pin that foundation exactly where it is so that it can be put back with a new foundation because it is an existing nonconformity. So there's just a technical aspect to that, and just wanted to make sure everyone's...
Okay, way I've designed this is a series of headers.
I understand.
Okay, so that we can have point loads and underpin where the point loads are, so we don't have to disturb a lot of foundation, okay?
There's many ways to do it, just trying to make it
Concrete
generic,
right.
kind of, we run into this to a lot, and occasionally people will progress with the demolition, remove the foundation before taking the necessary steps to be able to put the structure back in place.
Right.
And it creates a headache for the resident
Right.
and the property owner, and I'm just trying to avoid that.
Right.
Thank you.
I could see the use in that. I think we had one case where the foundation collapsed.
Well,
An original foundation collapsed when a new structure was built on top of it.
well, we don't plan to do that, because my engineer and I've discussed this. We're gonna have a series of underpinnings. But we don't know exactly where they're gonna be, because we don't know until we get in a demo on the structure, see how well the stone holds up.
Any further comments or questions from the board? Any public comment? Yes, sir.
Joe Morrissey, 113 Walnut Avenue. We actually like the look of the garage. It's a very pretty garage. 113 we still own. Would it be possible to add windows to the side of the garage that faces our house, just to break up that side?
There currently are no windows on that side, but I guess we could add them, but,
Because right now, I think it's a one-story garage, and now you're going to go
Yes.
2 stories.
no, no, the plate, this is the second, that's the plate on the first floor wall, but this is attic space, it's all attic.
What's the difference in height between this roof, the top of this roof, and where you have it, what it's currently at?
Oh, it's only 6 or 7 feet. No, in terms higher,
Yeah.
this roof's maybe 3 feet higher than existing.
Okay.
Existing roof comes right about in there, it's about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet higher, that's it.
Okay. It's obviously going to be higher than what's there now. It's our home, the home next door, they're close. If we could get windows on the side, just to break that up, so we're not, our future homeowner's not looking at the side of a garage with no windows.
Got it.
I think it'd be nice.
We could put them, no problem.
Comment?
This is a fairly low structure to start with. This is, while it's not the original garage, because there wasn't one, it is an older construction. And what Martha tried to put together mimics the existing structure to somewhat. But it's also a garage, and people have to live here. We don't want to put a garage on that low part. It's going to look funny. If you look at it here, it looks big, like a house. But this is a garage. It's all fairly low. That means there's going to be a window looking into my car. It's going to, like, get hot. Like, there aren't a lot of windows, like low windows in garages like that. We really would prefer not to do that. And I appreciate your comments, but you are building on spec. You're not neighbors. And like, while I appreciate your feedback, you're not neighbors. I understand that, but it feels like you're going after us, and I don't appreciate that. If we weren't right after you, you wouldn't even be here.
Okay.
Also, this is there is some vegetation around here. So this window will be facing you, that will be facing yours. So when you look at the garage, when the vegetation is finished, you're going to be seeing still a window up top. Yes, you won't see side windows, but, so it's more money to add windows, but whatever. I was just duplicating in windows what was there now, the window configurations there now.
I think your design's fine.
Oh.
Any further comments or questions from the board?
I
have a
would like
motion?
to, anybody else? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we offer a provisional certificate, that we recommend a provisional certificate of approval of appropriateness with the change to the roof line to mimic what is existing on this very striking and also very public Japanese house, because it's on a corner and every inch of this property can be seen from the street. So as we did with the addition that they put on, we really just need to be careful that it looks like it came with it, even if it didn't.
Got it. Understood.
So we offer, I make a motion for a provisional certificate of appropriateness when the design, with this change in design.
Okay, and can we just submit the drawings to you, for the change of design? It's minor. Do I have to resubmit in another meeting? No, okay.
So that's the language that's going to go to the commissioners.
Got it.
So they will look for that change in design.
Okay.
Is there a second?
We like the design as it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend a certificate of appropriateness with conditions. The roof line.
We're going to put a
Scoop
little
on
peak,
top.
a more scoop peak up here.
And the scoop on
Yep.
top. The motion was seconded. I also say yay. 4 are all in favor. And thank you for presenting to us today.
Well, thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Harb 20-2116, new business. 130 Poplar Avenue, Wayne, PA. Addition of larger kitchen on the rear of home using the existing footprint. Before we get into your presentation, I would like to give some basic background on your property. According to Radnor Township records, they say it is a contributing property. It was built between 1905 and 1915. The builders were Wendell and Smith. Radnor Historical Society's Historic Resource Survey says it was built between circa 1905 and 1915. Please introduce yourself and share your plans.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Hsu. I'm a partner at PS & Daughters, and we're presenting this plan as the project managers to the board tonight. Thank you. So I'll lead with these first two images only to emphasize this is the existing front of the home and the front of the home from the corner. None of the front facade will be impacted by the project that we are proposing. Everything that we're proposing tonight is addition built on the existing footprint in the rear of the home, not visible from the street. So I just wanted to lead with that so we have the right context. And just to give you, from an aerial view so we can all see where we are. In this first image here, Poplar runs down the right-hand side of the picture. We're in the very rear of the home here where the red circle is and the arrow. Can you see that in this? It's a little dark up there. Similarly, from this angle, Poplar is up to the top right of the page, and a direct aerial rear view of the home shows Poplar at the top of this picture. So we're in the back here of the home, just to give everyone the site location. So what we are proposing doing for the homeowners is working on the existing footprint to remove this patio or deck and extend the kitchen out, keep the existing stairwell, and really just capture this additional square footage to provide a larger modern kitchen for the family that lives in this home, but honor the footprint and keep the design from the exterior relatively simple. Let me pause for any, I don't know if there are any questions or comments while I'm on these images. I can move into drawings, but based on your feedback tonight, I thought I would start with the.
Yeah, I was curious, like when I saw the pictures of what exists there in the back. And this has come up before, and I was always curious because sometimes those additions were used as places for toilets. And there was a couple of examples in North Wayne, I believe. And I was always curious about that. So here I got a pattern book from like 1861, and it was Woodward's. And it was really interesting because a lot of the patterns in that book, and that was a popular pattern book at the time, the toilets were on the first floor in the back of the house, and the bathrooms were on, where you had your bathtub and things like that, were on other floors.
Right.
I thought that was like so interesting. So I know there was at least one example in North Wayne of where there was that portion in the back of the house which at one time was used as a toilet.
That is interesting.
I thought so too. And I thought, when am I going to bring this up at one of our HARB meetings? And I've been meaning to do this now for like a year.
Check it off the list.
So
You did.
I thought this would be a good time to do that, considering your addition back there.
Yes. Okay, so now that we can see what this will look like, I'll take you through on the plans. So this is the existing roof plan of the home. So here's the existing kitchen roof, the existing side deck, and the existing basement roof. And here's the existing back deck and stairs. So we'll be using this existing footprint to really just bring all of that into the interior. Here again is an existing, the rear exterior elevation. So here's the roof and the deck that we'll be bringing into the interior. And finally, the side exterior elevation. So the proposed roof will just be on the existing footprint. Kitchen will be under the roof, obviously, but there's nothing that's changing about the footprint of the home. Similarly, for the back deck, we'll be using the existing footings to rebuild the stairs. And here is the proposed rear exterior elevation. So doing our best to mimic the roof line on the other side of the twin, so that if anyone were to look at these two homes together, though they are twins, this will make them look more like twins than they do today. I don't know if you want me to take you through all of the materials. Happy to do that. Here's the proposed side exterior elevations. So again, same stairs, same back deck on the existing footing. And as you could see in the renderings, we will have plantings here to compensate for some of this siding. But everything else is matching the existing styles. So the K-style gutter will match the decking treads, all of the windows, the siding, everything is really designed to just be relatively discreet. The exciting piece of the project for the clients is on the inside of this home, so our mission was just to contain the space and match what we could to the existing.
The proposed addition, in my opinion, this is a comment, does keep the main house prominent.
Yes.
That's what we look for.
Yes.
Also, I think it would be really a challenge for somebody to see this addition from the street.
I agree.
Okay.
So just to, again, move back to the 3D rendering and show you the materials are called out here. I won't read them all to you unless you'd like me to, but everything has been accounted for, and to the point that the board is making. The objective here is to not have any impact to the street view of this home. Front of this home is unbelievably cool, and we're not doing anything to it. And this was actually the cover page, but I wanted to start with the street view just to emphasize that we're not impacting it at all. So that concludes my
Well done.
presentation.
Any further comments, questions from the board?
Okay, well.
We have a motion.
I so moved that we offer a recommendation for a certificate of appropriateness with the understanding that this cannot be seen from the street.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Terry? Yes? Okay, we have a motion for certificate of appropriateness. The motion was seconded, and it was thirded. I also say yay. The board recommends a certificate of appropriateness. Thank you for presenting to us today.
Thank you for your time. Thanks.
All right. Our last piece of new business this evening is HARB 2021-17, 424 Woodland Avenue. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to give some basic background on this property. According to Radnor Township records, they say it is a contributing property. It was built in 1885 to 1889. The architect was Price Brothers. The builder was Wendell and Smith. Radnor Historical Society's Historic Resource Survey says the historic name or type of house is a Flemish house, built circa 1889 to 1890. There was an addition or alteration date of circa 1929. The architects were Price Brothers and Houston, Joseph, and Stanford Lewis, who did alterations. The builders were Wendell and Smith. Thank you. Please introduce yourself and share your plans.
How is everybody tonight? I'm Eric Rimshaw. I'm a partner in Fury Design and the architect for this project, and this is Chris Pernat, who is my associate, and we're representing our client, Brent Jones, who's planning on moving into this house when we're finished with the renovation. What we're proposing is, hang on, there we go. What we're proposing is, and here is, this is a corner property, and what we're proposing is to add to the garage. The back of this house was actually added onto in about in the 90s. There was a large addition done to the back of it. The garage, if you can see, the garage portion is toward the lower property line. Our client has asked us to enlarge the garage if possible, and the attic space that's above it, that's now kind of a game room. We are also adding in a small dormer next to the garage to allow for an appropriate laundry room, and we are taking down a very ugly deck that's on the rear of the house and adding just a nice small landing and staircase down from the French doors from the newer property. You can see this is the house from the street. We are not touching anything on the rest of the house other than to restore it, and even the windows are in good shape. So we're painting, we're keeping the roof line, we're keeping all the stonework, everything about this, and basically the additions will be done in the same manner, all the same materials, all this, and we're going to match cedar siding. It's painted cedar siding and cedar shake siding and so forth. This is the view you see from the street. That piece, as you can see, is the addition that was done in the 90s. The kitchen was enlarged, and a very large family room was built on the back, and the garage was actually built in the 90s. And you can see the deck that sticks out from the French doors. So what we're just, there's the side of the garage that there's a very long, it's along the property line, there's a very long tree, a mature tree line along that side. And you can, just for context, you probably know about this neighborhood, they were all built by, they're all sort of slightly quirky versions of that era of house. All of them had additions done to them. A lot of them are very well improved, but it's a great little neighborhood. This is the existing plan of the house. The original house, you can see the dotted lines are the beams in the family center. You can imagine, so you can see the original house was quite small. The new addition that was done in the 90s was fairly large. You can see the scale of the deck that's out here, and the new garage that was built in the 90s. And the second floor, we're only touching where Chris is showing you the arrow. We're building out from that area. And as you can see, and the reason for this, if it matters, is that he collects cars and wants an appropriate place to have them and not have them parked out on the driveway.
This is the extension of the garage that we're doing that in the back. We're maintaining the current, I'm sorry. Sure. We are just extending the garage with the current width of the garage. We're not adding any width to it. And you can see right next to the garage, we're adding, this is our little laundry room here, right here, that we're adding in. And then we're just really redefining the deck that's coming off the back of the house.
We're basically going to take that to the lawn.
Right. And you can see the second floor here. We're really just extending out the roof that's there. We're kind of just redefining the dormer that was there. We're not changing it in any way other than just elongating the back area.
I have one question.
Go ahead, yes.
Are you taking out any existing walls?
We are removing walls we are removing walls at the rear of the garage.
Right here.
And right there.
Are they original to the house, do you know?
No, they were from the 90s.
Okay.
From the 1990s.
Okay, thank you.
We're not touching any of the 1890s.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure in your plan, so thank you for
It
clarifying
got pretty
that.
touched on the back in the 1990s. And what's nice about these additions is you can't really even see them from the side street in the corner. It's very much back toward the back of the edge of the house. And you can see from the elevate. Right. We'll show you. We've done some elevations to show you that. I mean, some renderings. So there you can see just how what we're doing is the rear of the garage gets a dormer for the second floor game room, and the rear of the garage we're doing a series of windows to bring more light in and make it more interesting. And then we're adding this dormer to create a new laundry room that's between what I'll call the new 1990s family room and the garage. Not touching the front. We're not doing the garage doors over. All of that's going to stay right where intact. And there's sort of the elevation of what we're intending. And if you go, questions, please.
Again, this is a Japanese-style house, and I don't see any of the, regardless of the fact that the garage was put on in
Sarah,
the 90s.
it's a Flemish house.
So
it would
but
have
it still has the
Dutch
scoop-
influence.
The scoops on the roof.
We are showing the curve. If you go back to the elevations, we are actually creating that soft curve on that new addition.
Okay, you've given me so much paperwork, I'm not exactly sure where you are.
It's a
Yeah,
little
this
confusing.
is a different design.
Here we go, Sarah, right here, the last page, there it is.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right, thank you, I'm sorry.
So we are actually enhancing that. We're creating that sense of curve in the roof.
Okay, all right. That's very helpful.
In fact, if you look at the additions that were done in the 1990s, none of them had the curves.
We weren't in existence in the
I know.
1990s.
That's why we're trying to.
That's
bring it
why
back.
we're in existence.
And that's why we're trying to bring it back to sort of to fit into the house.
Any further comments, questions from the board?
To see the way the front elevation's changing, I'm looking at the right drawing here, to see the original width versus the new width, right?
That's just the
That's
existing.
That's the
That's all
existing,
existing.
and we're not touching it.
Doesn't
There's-
this show the addition then?
Why don't you go back to that drawing?
Where it says proposed?
Hang on,
Oh,
there's,
I'm sorry, these are just the height. No, I
right.
no,
Correct,
that's
Right. So the front facade is exactly as it's gonna stay, and we're not touching it. The only thing that's changing is the rear facade and the garage side of the house,
Okay.
which was, we're basically adding on to the 1990s additions and trying to make the house feel a little less like getting rid of the ugly deck on the back and so forth.
The 3D rendering that you've given us is different than the plot plan that you've given us.
The,
It shows some kind of, I'm sorry, I'm just,
Okay.
you've given
No,
us so
it's-
much to
it's-
look
then
at.
If you look at the plot plan, then the pink part in the plot plan, we're showing you the extension of the garage.
Right, but there's something that shows, is this curved element, is that, that's just a ground level thing?
It's a ground level thing, and we're not even sure that's potentially, there may be a patio in the garden or some sort of a
Okay,
slate
so
space, but it's
I'm
not
looking at
architecture.
this. Very large.
Any further comments, questions from the board? Do we have a motion? Certificate of appropriateness, okay. Okay. Is there a second? We have a motion for a certificate of appropriateness. The motion was seconded. It was thirded. I also say yay.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you for presenting to us today.
We appreciate it.
And for your patience. This was a long meeting.
Yes, it was interesting.
Before we adjourn, I would like to mention that the next HARB meeting is scheduled for September 1st, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Applications for the September 1st, 2021 meeting must be submitted on or before August 17th, 2021. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.